Hey everyone, we're live.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being here. If you are here, please feel free to put anything in the chat to let us know you're watching. We're so glad you could tune in. I'm here with my wonderful guest, Lydia Carradine. Hold up, let me make sure I pronounce your last name correctly. Lydia Carradine?
Carradine. Yeah.
Carradine. Okay, I had it right the first time. Okay, just want to make sure. Yes,
Yeah.
Lydia
Hi.
Carradine, and she has a wonderful YouTube channel at her handle, Lydia Carradine, if you want to check out her channel. But I guess I'll introduce myself first and then we'll get into the questions
Yeah.
for prioritizing your mental health while living with a disability. If y'all have joined, you know my channel is focused on mental health, Black women's mental health, healing, in online entrepreneurship, which I'm entering into as well, in supporting Black women in leaving toxic jobs. Yes, and I am so glad you are here. And now I'll pass it over to my guest to talk a little bit about her YouTube channel and anything else you'd like to mention.
Well, thank you. So I'm Lydia Carradine. My channel is my name, but my kind of tagline is melanated hyphenated convalescent because I am an actress and writer. I'm a Black woman who's navigating Hollywood, but I also recently have become disabled and I'm dealing with a chronic illness. And so I just decided to kind of do a little rebrand um, and streamline my channel and talk about my experience, just what I'm going through personally and physically, navigating the healthcare system as a melanated person,
Mm-hmm.
um, and kind of how all of that plays into working in an industry where rest is vilified and not
Mm-hmm.
encouraged at all, and how I can kind of go forward as I move towards recovery
Yeah.
and try to not drive myself into the ground for something that I'm like, really passionate about. But also, it's like, oh no, I need to take care of me first and foremost.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that is so important. Yes. So y'all be sure to check out her channel. She has amazing videos. If you're navigating something similar, she has a lot of resources that she shares as well. Please check out her channel. Okay, I guess we'll get into the questions.
Yeah.
On your channel, you talk about living with a disability and then giving yourself grace, right, as you adapt to this new normal of living with a disability.
hmm
What inspired you to document your journey, and what do you hope your audience gains from watching your videos?
So there were a couple of things. The short version is that last summer, despite being vaxxed, boosted, masking, being careful, I got
Mhm.
COVID in June. And then I got it about a month later, a different strain in July. And I then had a rebound case.
Mm.
And the first time I thought I was recovering kind of normally. The second time I was having more fatigue. And then cut to a couple months later, I developed chronic fatigue syndrome. I was having like massive amounts of nausea, dizziness, blurred vision, and I also had an increase in my neuropathy symptoms, which I had experienced for the past four-ish years.
Mhm.
And I had kind of been able to like blow them off for a while because they weren't as bad, but they really increased with COVID. And so I then started to go down the path of trying to see if I had MS because my mom has it, her aunt had it. And so I was like, this makes sense. COVID probably exacerbated this. Um, and so throughout that process, I was met with a lot of resistance and gaslighting and dismissiveness from doctors and people not taking me seriously. Um, and I all of this eventually led to me finding out that I had a pituitary tumor in my brain, and I have just found out that it's benign. I've started treatment, but as I was kind of navigating all that, I was really frustrated because long COVID itself, people aren't talking about as much. Doctors aren't as knowledgeable because it's really new still. And I found a really great long COVID support group, but everyone in the group has or had COVID. And so when you are ill, you you can't always be a resource for someone. And so I just decided kind of like as I can to share what I was going through in case it could help someone else. And also as a way of just being like, okay, I'm not making this up. I need to say these things out loud. And just like, as much as I could be a resource and kind of share and document what was going on, I wanted to be able to do that. So I really hope with my channel, people find like solace and see that they're not alone. And, you know, I feel like as much as the more we talk about things, the more like help we can get, and acknowledging each other, especially as Black women dealing with the healthcare system, is like so important. So that's kind of what prompted me. And another kind of practical thing was because I've been like so ill for so long, I had to cut back on work, and like now I'm actually on medical leave. And so I was like, maybe if I talk about this, I can monetize my channel, because like I can't work out in the wild. I had to stop auditioning because even that was so tiring, and being on set is just not safe. The second time I got COVID, I was actually on set. So and that was even while they still had COVID protocols in place. So it was really like what can I do to keep living through this?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's so important to talk about, 'cause especially like with the pandemic, the panini, right?
The
we
whole
haven't really
Panera.
had, yeah. We haven't really had a chance to kind of understand and unpack what we all went through, and especially if you did contract the virus during this time, like the lingering effects that it has on the body. There
Yeah.
hasn't really been a lot of spaces to share your story and what happened with you and share with other people. So I think, having a support group like that is so beneficial, just to, validate what you're going through. Like, you're not making this up. This is real. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Very real, unfortunately.
Yes. Yes. Okay, so pivoting a little bit to systemic racism, which we know is very real in the US, especially in the healthcare system. Do you have any advice for Black women who are currently navigating this, trying to prioritize their peace, their well being while navigating the systemically racist healthcare system in the US? And then how do we balance protecting our peace while also advocating for ourselves at the same time?
Wow, girl. So I feel like, so for the first part of that question, I think one of the best things you can do is document everything. Have
Mhm.
it like have a paper trail, have all of your prescriptions when you're going to different doctors, because what I found is my doctors they're not communicating with each other. And
Mhm.
so recently, my most recent prescription that I got specifically for this tumor, I was like, none of my other doctors have talked about the other prescriptions I'm on. And so
Wow.
I had to go to a patient facing website. I put in all of the things that I was taking. And
Mhm.
then the website told me, it was like, okay, well, you're taking 4 drugs in this class. So like, you might not want to do that because most people only take 3. So I had to just kind of like be like, okay, let me adjust my dosage like this, because this makes the most sense. So like,
Mhm.
you really have to be an advocate for yourself in every way possible. Another thing that I found helpful is I have a cousin who is an internist. And so I was, throughout this whole process, which is like 13 months at this point, I have been going to doctors who aren't listening, and like, these are the symptoms that I'm having.
Mhm.
It says it could be this. I feel like this, so it might be this. And it's
Right.
kind of being blown off. So like, it got to the point that he was like, send me your charts. And like, he would read them and be like, this is what this means. You need to go ask for this test and this test and this test. So if you have any doctor who you trust,
Mhm.
that's a way to get like a second opinion without having to like wait in a lobby for 2 hours. And
Mhm.
that I found to be really helpful, because that gave me like just a little bit more peace when my doctors are being like really flippant, or I have a telehealth visit and they're like, okay, so they're like reading the wrong person's chart. And I'm like, oh
Oh
my
my
God,
gosh.
you're gonna misdiagnose me because you like clearly don't even care.
Mhm.
So paper trail, get an outside opinion if you can. And then I guess to your question of finding balance. So I, just because like fatigue is a major part of what I'm dealing with, I only do what I can do. That for me has been the best thing.
Mhm.
So sometimes it's like I need to follow up on a prescription. I need to research a new med. I need to make another appointment with a specialist. And on some days it's like I'm only gonna call about the prescription because that's all I can do. And learning to kind of like pull back is hard for me because I'm like super ambitious. I'm like, I need to do all the things, but I'm just gonna make myself sicker. So along with that, ask for help. I've found that I have friends who really will help me, and that's another hurdle that I've had to overcome because I'm usually I'm the strong friend. The one who's like, talking to your strong friends. I'm the strong friend. And so asking for help has been humbling but necessary. And, one of my friends, she was like, do you need me to take you to your doctor's appointment? I will take you. And she did. And like my other friends, like, are you too tired to cook today? I will bring you food. And she did. And so that has kind of been how I've been navigating all of that.
I think that's so important, like having a community around you so you don't have to bear all this by yourself. I think that's so important. And
Yeah.
that's also something I'm learning is to ask for help because, whew, that is a challenge for me. I'm just used to just powering through, like you said, being like highly ambitious, highly driven, dedicated. It's like I can do all this by myself, but then you end up just like burning yourself out, right? Which impacts your health even worse. So
Yeah.
having that, being able to ask for help to people who want to support you, want to help you, and building that community around you is so important.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of people don't realize that having any kind of illness, disability is itself isolating. So it's even harder, I think, just because of the nature of like, I can't go as many places or do as many things. And so then I'm dealing with this like really singular experience. So it's kind of hard for me to be like, well, maybe like people don't want to talk about it. People don't want to hear about like all the blood tests that I had to do last week or whatever it was. But yeah, having a reliable community is crucial.
Agreed. Agreed. Yes. So talking about long COVID, I know that's kind of like a weird word on YouTube, but I'm going to say it. It seems like a public health crisis that's still being ignored, right? We don't hear it talked about, especially now. So can you talk about your experience with long COVID and the power of support groups in navigating what's often an invisible illness?
Yeah, it's been really frustrating to see that people have just kind of moved on.
Yeah.
And what we were all worried about when everyone was like hoarding toilet paper and like flying with like full space helmets, now it's like that never ever happened.
Yep.
And so I'm like, it did happen.
It did.
Millions of people died, even though the CDC like
It did.
took all their info off the website. This is still happening. It's still, there's still new variants. And so it's been really frustrating to see people dismiss it and then treat me as if I have lost my mind, because it's really altered my life in really drastic ways. But the support group that I found, Body Politic, was amazing. And it just, again, it goes back to community. Like having people who have been through the same thing was so meaningful, because then I didn't have to like start from like a base level explanation, like this is what happened to me after my first infection or my second infection. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's still frustrating because I've seen in my friends and family who actually cares about me. And that has been eye-opening. And it's even kind of like, some people, like when they're around me, they'll mask or they'll ask me if I'm okay. But out in the world, they're just like doing whatever. It's kind of like men who are like, oh, I have a daughter, now I'll be respectful to women. And it's like, but you should care about everybody else's health anyway. And I know that like there are extremes, and it's been a long time. Like, I'm not asking everybody to mask all the time or anything like that, but just like, when I go to the doctor, I would like my healthcare professionals to put on a mask, because I'm obviously ill if I'm there. And if I'm at the specialist that I'm seeing, I'm extra ill.
Right.
Please don't breathe on me. Because I could have like very serious complications. So that's been
Yeah.
a little hard to navigate. What was the second part of your question?
So the power of support groups, like you said, Body Politic was the support group that was really pivotal in you realizing that you weren't making this up, that other people are going through this. So
Mhm.
just the power of a support groups and having that validation, having other people who are going through similar things in your healing journey.
Yeah. With having people to commiserate with,
Yeah.
helpful. And also, like,
Yeah.
I learned a lot about what specific things to ask for when I
Mm.
was at
Mhm.
the doctor. So I was like, I feel really fatigued and weak and like my limbs feel heavy. And people were like, okay, you might have dysautonomia, you might have POTS, you might, like, they were giving me specific answers based on like the things that they'd already experienced. And so that was also very, very helpful. It's like, oh, this thing helped me this way. Like, you can get support from this organization or what have you. So that was a really specific thing that also helped me through when I was like,
Mhm.
I don't know what to do.
Yeah, yeah, that's so important. I know, and as someone who also experienced long COVID for like maybe 2 years after I was first diagnosed, I didn't even know there were support groups out there. So if I would have had something like that, all the resources that would have been available to me that I would have known existed, I think that would have been so helpful. And so to have a group like this, two people who are still experiencing long COVID, I think is so important. And just to say that name again, it's Body Politic, right?
Body
That's
politic. Yeah.
okay.
I will put some links somewhere. I did it
Okay.
with my older videos, but yeah, body politic is one. And then I met a woman through Body Politic who has a specific group for Black COVID survivors, since
Oh,
we
oh.
have, yeah, we have an
Mhm.
even more unique experience. Um,
That's amazing. That's
yeah.
amazing. Yeah, so y'all check out her channel. She has a bunch of resources. If you're going through something similar and you're looking for resources, support groups, she has a ton of amazing resources on her channel.
Yeah.
So pivoting a little bit, I guess, to talking about mental health and finding a therapist, right? Which sometimes can be a taboo topic, especially in the Black community, talking about therapy. So, how would you say that therapy has helped you on your healing journey? And then, what advice do you have for other Black women who may be considering going to therapy as well?
My therapist is a life changer. So
Mhm.
I found her in between my first and second COVID infection, and she's been really helpful in encouraging me to take care of myself. She has to say it almost every time we have a session.
Mhm.
But because of the person I am, I'm like, but I also need to, like, even as I'm like in bed, I'm like, okay, there's a writer's strike and I can't even work right now, but I still need to read the trades every day. I still need to
Mhm.
work on this pilot and email my agent and do all these things. And she's like, or you can just take a nap. And I'm like, you right. Um, and so that has been, it's really nice that she holds me accountable in a loving way.
Mhm.
And she also, so right before I found her, I feel like this is something that probably a lot of us who have worked in any environment can relate to. I was having a really hard time um, equating my self worth with my work.
Mhm.
And then, because of COVID and the chronic fatigue and then all the neuropathy and everything else that I was dealing with, it was like, I can't work. So what does that mean about me? And on top of that, before I before I got COVID, I'd been in the Midwest for 8 months taking care of my mom because of her MS. And
Mhm.
so I was supposed to go back last fall and like help her because I just come back to LA for a little bit. I was only going to be here for a few months and I was going to go back with my mom.
Mhm.
And in September, I was so sick. I was like, I can't come back. And I felt so horrible because I was like, I'm not working. I'm not helping my mom. Like, what is my value in life? And she was
Yeah.
like, you are valuable. Your mom knows that you love her. Like, you have to get better. Like, you can't kill yourself to take care of her. Um, so
Mm.
that's a way that she has really, really helped me kind of navigate this. And so I would say too, I mean, every Black woman in America needs therapy. I will just I strongly believe that. And
Yeah.
it took me a long time to, I mean, well, no, that's not true. I knew this years ago, but because I have parents of a certain age
Hmm.
and just a lot of other things, like I didn't think it was really available to me. And so I would say, like, anyway, you can find a therapist, even if it's like once a month.
Hmm.
Having someone who has a neutral opinion or a neutral like experience of you, who isn't a friend or a family member, but
Right.
who genuinely cares about you having your best quality of life, I think is so valuable. Because I feel like we as Black women just aren't affirmed in general. And so having
Hmm.
someone who is going to do that and encourage you, like, what do you need today? That's,
Right.
she's asking me to like figure out, like, where do you find joy? Where do you find joy outside of your industry? What are your core values? Like, what are your core wounds? And then how do you move on from that and like separate yourself from the things that happen to you? Like, we need to talk about that. We all need to
Hmm.
have a conversation. So like, yes,
Yeah.
please, Black women, if you can, I cannot recommend enough. And I was really fortunate to find a therapist who is also a Black woman. She's close to my age, and so she understands a lot of what I'm going through.
I love that. Yes. And I agree. Therapy has been pivotal on my healing journey as well. Just to have, like you said, that outside voice who doesn't know you, who doesn't know your story, who can look at things kind of objectively,
Mm-hmm.
and relay back to you what you're saying. Because a lot of times we'll just be in our heads a lot of the time, with these narratives and then voicing them out for someone who doesn't know our history, who can tell us, I think this A may be connected to B, and this may be a solution for that, is so beneficial.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the power of therapy is real. It is. And leading right into that, do you have any tips for finding affordable, accessible therapy? Because we know sometimes that is a barrier, especially for Black women, to find therapy that is affordable, accessible. So, do you have any tips for that to share?
Yeah. So I thought, I was like, I live in California. I can't afford a therapist.
Hmm.
Um, but I was actually talking to a kind of mindset coach, and she, who works with a lot of actors and writers, and she was saying, like, well, you can like go through, I think, the Entertainment Community Fund. They have accessible and sliding scale therapists. And then with my particular insurance, she was like, you actually, like, there's a specific number that is like very small and hidden on the back of your card. If you call them, it's like a, they won't tell you about it,
Oh my
but
gosh. Yeah.
you call them and then they'll do an assessment, and they'll be like, okay, here is your activation number. These are the places where you can find this therapist, these therapists that you, and then you have to, of course, go through and like make sure they still take your insurance and see if they're accepting new patients. But that's how I found mine. And then, there are others like Black Girl Therapy.
Hmm.
Um, and on Megan the Stallion's website,
Yeah.
she has like, it's
Hmm.
like bad bitches have bad
Yes,
days too.
that's right. Yeah.
And so
Hmm.
she has tons of resources. And I actually, so I have been, to your previous question, I've been sending all my friends who like have said like, I need to go to therapy. I'm like, yes, here's how. And so I'm like sending them all these links and stuff. Um, but yeah, those are some of the things that I found helpful.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, I actually stumbled across Megan the Stallion's website too. I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many resources here.
Yeah.
Yes. So if y'all haven't seen that, it's called Bad Bitches Have Bad Days Too.
Hmm.
And that's Megan the Stallion's website. She has therapy resources and things like get it, girl, get it, girl. Yes, I love that. So what do you see as the benefits of Black women talking openly about mental health now, as opposed to kind of keeping it secret, right? We know this has kind of been a taboo topic in past generations, but now our generation is kind of like opening up and being real about mental health issues, therapy, things like that. What do you see as the benefits of that from your perspective?
I think that if we're allowing ourselves to be mentally free in a
Hmm.
way that previous generations weren't. My therapist said to me a few weeks ago, she was like, we're doing things that our parents were not doing. Like they were really bound by a lot of respectability politics and just kind of like surviving, and for understandable reasons, being like, this is something that white people do, this is something like we can afford, or
Right.
the number of times my mom has said, like, you don't need to tell somebody who doesn't know you all your problems. I'm like, that's not the point. I think that us sharing our stories and seeking mental health is not only helping us, but I have found so much comfort in talking to women like you and just other people I know who it's like, oh, I I thought maybe I was being too sensitive, or maybe it's just like, this is just the way this thing is. Like, oh, men are just going to treat me like this. I'm just going to have this experience when I'm at the doctor or in a job interview or in an academic setting. And it's like, no, 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 no. Like, this is not like a normal family relationship. This,
Yeah.
like, it's okay for me to feel like this. I can express when I'm sad. Like, we could just be full people. And I think that that's kind of what talking about this and seeking therapy is allowing us to do. It's like, I can be more than what the world would like me to be. I don't have to be a strong Black woman. I don't have to be like, it's like all or nothing. Like, you're just a strong Black woman, or it's like Black excellence, Black excellence. And it's like, sometimes I want to sit in my tub and listen to like Tweet's first album and be sad because I had a bad
Yeah.
day, and like think about it. Like, okay, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling these things? And how am I gonna move on? And like, that's to answer your question, that.
Yeah, that's so important, right? And that's like also resisting oppression because we're resisting the narratives other people have had about us. Like, no, we're full human beings. We have a full spectrum of emotions, full spectrum of experiences, and we can't be like pigeonholed into this and this and this. And yeah, that's the power of sharing our authentic stories. I think it's so important. And I'm so inspired by seeing people, younger than me, like just being open, like, yeah, I have anxiety, yeah, I have a depression, like living in this world, it's sometimes it's hard not to, experience those things. So powerful.
Yeah, yeah. And I think we need to definitely, like, when people say these things, believe them, because I
Hmm.
told my mom I had depression when I was 8.
Hmm.
And well, it
Yeah.
took a lot longer for me to get into therapy. But I was like, I knew, I was like, I'm more sad than a child should be.
Yeah.
Um, so when people say these things, like, we need to hear them, acknowledge it, and like be a resource however we can.
Hmm. Absolutely. And then when one person shares their authentic story, like it gives other people permission to share theirs. And suddenly we're like, okay, it doesn't feel
Yeah,
so isolating anymore. Because
that.
then you can see, wow, this person experienced this, I experienced this. Like, I'm not the only one. There are resources available, and I'm not making this up in my head, right? We can kind
Hmm.
of get out of our heads and see that this is actually a real experience that other people are having. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
totally.
yeah. Okay, as we're wrapping up, where can people continue to follow your journey? I know you have an amazing YouTube channel. Are there any other places where people can follow you?
Yeah, so my Instagram, Twitter, my website, they're all Lydia Carradine. And this has been a lovely, lovely experience. I just thought of one more thing related
Yeah.
to health.
Hmm.
So it's a two-part thing about advocating for yourself. The first time I had COVID, I went to get Paxlovid,
Hmm.
and I had the negative PCR, I had the negative or the positive PCR and the positive antigen test, according to the rules that clinic set out. Like, you need to have these things,
Hmm.
it needs to be within this many days. I went, I was having trouble breathing as I was there. I was clearly fatigued, right?
Hmm.
And so as they like did all like took my blood pressure, listened to my heartbeat, all this stuff, they were
Hmm.
like, well, you took it on this day, so we don't know if we should give it to you. And I was like, but like, I could not breathe. I
Hmm.
told them, I was like, I have been trying to sleep sitting up because if I lay down, I can't breathe. Like, it was very, very bad, right?
Hmm.
And so what happened is that I was sitting in that exam room for about 2 hours while they hemmed and hawed over whether or not they were going to give me Paxlovid. And at one point, the black nurse came in and he was like, I don't know why they're acting like this. And I looked at him like, we need to. But that is a real thing that
Hmm.
happens
Yeah, yeah,
because
absolutely.
it's documented that, like, they think we don't feel pain the same way. They think we're exaggerating. They think we're lying.
Hmm.
And that was, well, it was frustrating because I'd been there for 2 hours and they kept
Hmm.
coming in like making up excuses like, oh, we had a malfunction with the machine and we don't know. I'm like, you've been okay, whatever. But that wasn't even like a, it's not like a narcotic. You don't need a real prescription for it from your personal doctor. So there's no, it's not like a fun drug. It's like, I will just be able to breathe now.
Hmm.
They didn't want to give me that. So going off of that, there have been some other times when my doctors have been like, no, we don't want to run this test. We don't want to give you this other thing that will help you. And so one of my friends who has a lot of other health issues were like, if you are experiencing this with doctors, what you need to do
Hmm.
is have a denial of care claim. They don't want
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
So, in advocating for yourself, if you ask for a specific thing, if you put it in writing and they say no, then you can ask them, like, hey, can you just make a note and write down why you didn't give this to me and the date and your name and your medical license number? And then you might get your drug. But if you don't, then you can have a malpractice suit. So I'm just,
Hmm.
take care of yourselves however you can.
Yes, that's so important because a lot of this information is secret. A lot of
Exactly.
us don't know this information, and it's, that's on purpose.
Yeah.
So the more of us that like tell denial of care, because I had absolutely no idea about that.
I didn't either.
Um, yeah, like who would know this, right?
Why did I know
It's
that?
kept behind the scenes. But the more of us who share our stories, share our experiences, share the resources, the tips, how you navigate these processes that are so opaque and so like no one knows what's happening, um, and they operate off you not knowing what's happening,
Mm-hmm.
right? The more of us who can share information about how these processes work, I think it's so important, and it will go such a long way in just us knowing what's happening and being able to advocate for ourselves. So thank you
Mm-hmm.
for sharing that. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So I think that's wrapping up. Let me just go through the comments and
Oh yeah,
see. We
people
have
are
Mara.
here.
I know. Hey y'all. Got Mara, Alicia, Mara. Hey y'all. Thank y'all so much for commenting. Yes, community is everything. It is. Agreed. Agreed. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you so much, Lydia, for being a guest on my channel.
Of
And I
course.
just want to say personally, you sharing your story about long COVID has kind of helped me open up a little bit because that's something, I'm still healing from, and being able to share that because it's a traumatic event, right?
Yes.
Um, and having it no longer discussed as if that was all like a bad dream that all of us had when it was really a horribly traumatizing 2+ years and we're still going through it at this moment. Just being able to open up about that has helped me listening to your story. So thank you.
Of
Thank you.
course. Yes. Thank you so much for having me. This was lovely.
Absolutely. All right, y'all. Thank y'all so much for joining, commenting, everything. And this will be uploaded to my YouTube channel. So, yeah, thank you. And check out Lydia's channel.
Bye.
Bye.